2, 1. Good evening, everyone. Hello and happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is McKaylee. I work with Tattered Cover Bookstore, and I'm so excited to have you all here today. First and foremost, I want to thank you for joining us and supporting your local independent bookstore. It means the world to us, more than you'll ever know. We are here in 2021 because of you, our community members, our viewers, our supporters. We've lasted 50 years. That's right. It is Tattered Cover's 50th anniversary because of you all. And so we thank you so much for that. Slowly but surely, we're going to be working our way back to in person, but we're still enjoying this virtual atmosphere that we're in right now as well. Before I go any further, I want to let you know that closed captioning is enabled for those who might want it or need it. There's a black bar at the bottom of the screen with a button labeled CC on it. Click that button and closed captioning is enabled should you want it or need it. Tattered Cover is a local independent bookstore. For those who might not have heard of us before or joining us for the first time, thank you so much for being here. And we now have 5 locations in the Denver metro area, which is an amazing feat. We opened 2 of them this month, our children's location at Stanley Marketplace, as well as our brand new downtown location, McGregor Square. And for those of you on the western side of the state, you can look forward to our Westminster store coming later this summer as well. But for now, you can come and visit us at our 5 locations or shop online at tatteredcover.com. Also on Tattered Cover is our events, and we have so many coming up. We're taking a bit of a break for 4th of July, but we have so many more coming up and a lot of things planned for the All-Star baseball game that's happening later in July as well. But the one tonight is one of my favorites. It's part of this great series that we're doing, which is our Time to Travel series. We've also recently had our guest tonight. He was a moderator for a travel book event, that we did with Cheney Kwok and his new book, The Passenger. And so I'm very excited for this one. This event is going to be all about venturing to Mexico and everything that you need to learn. So our guest tonight is Nate Hake. He's a U.S. citizen from Denver, frequent digital nomad, and founder of Travel Lemming. In 2016, he started out on a year-long trip across the globe, which took him to 43 countries across 6 continents, and he hasn't really stopped since. He loves to explore emerging destinations in vibrant cities, and his goal is to help end over-tourism by promoting travel to places that may not be on your tourist list, but have plenty of space for new visitors. And you can visit him online at travellemming.com, and he's currently joining us from Puerto Vallarta. I know how to say that. It's my high school Spanish coming back. Puerto Vallarta. And it's a welcome, Nate, to the screen here. Let me change it over for us. Oh, you unmuted yourself and I accidentally muted you back. There you go.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Nate. Good to see you again.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited to learn about Mexico. How is Mexico right now? You're there.
Oh, it's hot, that's what I'll say. Hot and humid. This is the off season, as we'll talk about, but it's kind of becoming a bit of a they're calling it the second high season here, just because of the circumstances around travel right now. So it's hopefully everyone can hear me fine. I know there's a bit of an echo here. If there is sounds of Mexico in the background, that's because that's where I am. And it's never really quiet here.
Well, we're so excited for your presentation. I want to remind viewers that we will be doing a short Q&A after Nate's presentation where you can ask him any hints, tricks, questions that you may have about Mexico specifically or other travel needs. But right now we're focusing on Mexico. And Nate, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Awesome, great. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. And definitely please do, drop any questions that you have in the chat on the video there. Definitely happy to answer those at the end. So today here to talk about Mexico travel. We decided to do it on this subject for a few reasons, one of which being I currently happen to be here. It's also the country that I've spent the most time traveling in, and is the main subject, one of the main subjects of my blog, Travel Lemming, and is where a lot of Americans are traveling right now when it comes to traveling abroad. So here's a bit of a roadmap of what we're going to cover in today's presentation. So first, I'll just kind of quickly tell you what it is that I love so much about Mexico and what it is that I think that you might like about it if you want to travel. Then I'll talk a bit about the pandemic situation here. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Things are improving. It's also definitely not at the same place where the United States is. I'll give you my sort of anecdotal experience, having just been here for a few days. And some updates on the numbers and sort of so that you can make your own decision about, when it is that you'll feel comfortable traveling. I'll talk a bit about where to go in Mexico, my favorite destinations, both the popular ones that everybody goes to and that are probably already on your list. But I'm also going to try to highlight, as I hope to do in all of these presentations, destinations that are underrated, underloved, and I think really are hidden gems that deserve your attention and deserve your consideration of your tourism dollars, especially considering how hard some of these places have been hit over the last year. I'll give you a few travel tips that I have about Mexico, some of my best tips that I've got over the years. And then at the end, I will have response to whatever questions you have. So please do go ahead and drop those questions. Now, as always, if you go to travellemming.com/tattered cover, and that link is on the bottom of the screen there, you'll find links to resources mentioned in the presentation today. You'll also find some of my most popular Mexico posts. I have posts on Mexico travel tips, things to do in Mexico. I think I have probably 40 or 50 different articles about Mexico. So there's quite a lot on there. You can find all that linked. You can also find links to the resources that I will mention in the presentation. So first up, let's just talk about what it is that I love so much about Mexico. I mean, I think after Georgia, it's probably my second favorite destination in the world. And I'm talking about Georgia, the country. One day we'll do a presentation on that. And why I think you'll like it too. So my little personal, quick story of my personal love affair with Mexico. So it's technically speaking, the first foreign country I ever traveled to. I think it was like 9 or 10, and my grandparents, who at that point had a home down in New Mexico, would drive across the border to Juarez to get medication for cheaper, which is what a lot of American seniors do. And I went on a trip with them to Juarez when I was like, I think 9 years old at the time. And it was just for a day. But even that, I remember vividly, that one day there. Since then, Mexico has been a place I go multiple times a year and a half for about the last 10 years. I've spent well over a year, probably close to 2 years of my life in total in Mexico. I don't even know how many trips, well over a dozen, maybe up to 20, including a 6-month stint in 2017 to 2018. Where I was living in Merida and in Playa del Carmen out in the Yucatan. So I know a lot about the Yucatan, but I've been to most of the major travel destinations in Mexico. The one that I hadn't gone to that's really big is Puerto Vallarta. And so I'm here. And in fact, if you see on the bottom right-hand corner there, unfortunately, I can't show you on the screen without it washing out, but that's the view right outside of my apartment window. And that was the cup of coffee that I had this morning. So here's some of the things that I love about Mexico. I think if I had to just pick one, it's that Mexico is way more diverse than a lot of people give it credit for. And I'm just talking diversity of cultures, of landscapes, of climates, of things to do. There is a huge difference between the Riviera Maya, which is over on the Caribbean coast. And, if you think Tulum, Cancun, that's there, versus Mexico City, which is a megalopolis. I mean, truly one of the great cities in the world, versus out west in Baja California or down south in a place like Chiapas. You get really very different regional cultures, regional food, regional dress. Everything is very different in different parts of Mexico. And so I hesitate to make broad generalizations about the country because it is one of the most complex countries that I've ever been to. And I think it's really unfortunate the way that it gets played sometimes in the media in the US. It's sort of as if Mexico was a monolith and, the areas that are having particular trouble with cartels or something are representative of the entire country. And that's absolutely not the case. You can spend an entire lifetime exploring Mexico and still not see everything that there is to see. Although I'm going to try. So here's a few of my favorite, photos from my trip there. You see, the caves of Rio Secreto, which are in the Yucatan, Valladolid, which is my favorite town in Mexico we'll talk about, in Mexico City, Bacalar, the Lake of Seven Colors, all of which I will come back to in a bit. Another thing to love about Mexico, of course, is the beaches. Now, Mexico basically has two different, depending on which side of Mexico you're on, you're going to get a very different style of beach. It's the same as you would have different beaches in Florida versus California. So on the eastern side of Mexico, along the Riviera Maya, which is the stretch of the Yucatan Peninsula that runs from Cancun down to the border with Belize, that's where you'll find that like crystal clear blue Caribbean water. That's a lot of the Instagram shots that you see are coming from there. That's Tulum there in the center. That's a shot I took with my drone back when it was still allowable to fly drones in Mexico as a foreigner. But then you also have on the Gulf of Mexico, Veracruz, places like Celestuna on the left-hand side there, beaches that are a little bit more similar to what you might find like in Texas, South Padre Island, that sort of still nice water, not quite as clean, not quite as perfect. And then on the West Coast, it's an entirely different story because there you have the Pacific. And so because the shelf just drops off so quickly, you don't really get that nice, shallow, clean water that you get in the Caribbean, but you get better surfing, you get better waves, you get more of that sort of California style beach experience. And so that's where I currently am in Puerto Vallarta. But that's this, a similar story up and down the coast, whether you're talking about the beaches in Oaxaca all the way up to Cabo. Another thing to absolutely love about Mexico is food. And I'm not a big food traveler, to be honest with you. But like, this is a photo. This was just my meal the day before yesterday. This is what I ate: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. On the left-hand side there, you got chili killies, which I call breakfast nachos. Is basically what they are. It's tortilla chips with beans and eggs and avocado and salsa that you kind of eat. It's a great hangover cure if you've had too much to drink the night before. The margaritas and mezcal are strong here. In the middle, we've got tacos. I'm a vegan, so I'm cheating a bit. This is all like soy and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily look like it in the photo. And tacos here, I think all of those tacos that you saw in the middle there cost me 55 pesos when I probably overpaid, which is less than $3. And they were delicious. And on the right-hand side there, you've got a tortilla soup that I had the other day. And again, I literally just grabbed like a day's worth of food off of my phone. This is pretty normal for what meals look like here. So the food is just so rich, and it really does vary a lot by region. There's very different. You got like the adobe food in like Oaxaca, which is much more sort of earthy. You get a lot of these like chocolate tasting kind of creams that you have in Mexico, or in the Yucatan part of the Mexico. That's where chili killies is from on the left-hand side. And of course, you've got tacos and a wide variety of food, a lot more than I think people give credit for. Another thing to love about Mexico is it's just super travel friendly. Tourism is big business here. Is again, as much as there's sort of this one perception of Mexico in the news, the reality here is that Mexico as a country does everything it can to encourage tourism, both from the United States, from Europe, and from Latin America, because it's one of the biggest tourism destinations on the planet. And so because of that, you really have everything you need as a tourist. First, transportation is really easy. Getting to Mexico, very easy, including from Denver. I mean, Denver has direct flights to at least a half dozen different places in Mexico. If one tip, be sure to remember to check Southwest. If you're looking at Expedia or you're looking at Google Flights, when you're looking for flights, you'll miss those flights that are on Southwest, but Southwest has several direct flights to various destinations in Mexico from Denver. And so there's quite a bit of direct flights, particularly to Cancun, Mexico City, Cabo, but also to Puerto Vallarta. You can find a direct flight on United, I believe. Even within Mexico, once you're here, there's very affordable budget airlines. There's an airline called Viva Aerobus that I am taking this coming weekend to go to Mexico City. I would just caution, when you are using the Mexican Airlines to book, make sure that you're very attentive to the size and the weight of your bag, because it's not like in the US where you can kind of fudge a pound or two. They really do check, and they even check your carry-ons. They check how big they are. They check how many kilograms they have, and if you're over, they'll hit you with a $100 fee. So you may get suckered in by a $45 flight or something and end up paying hundreds of dollars for bags for your family. If you're not careful about that, the way to fix that is to know how big and how much your bags weigh, and to be sure to get those, recorded when you purchase. But if you do that, it's very affordable to fly within Mexico. There's also an excellent bus system. So they call it the ADO bus system. ADO is to use English American pronunciation. ADO has several different classes of buses. And so particularly around Mexico City or out in the Yucatan, you'll find the upper classes, like the Platino classes, which are essentially equivalent to riding business class on an airplane. You get on, there's a really big recliner seats. they have restrooms on board. Sometimes they have snacks. And then the levels kind of go down from there all the way down to, cheaper style of buses. But even the Platino buses are really incredibly affordable. They're very comfortable. It's actually my preferred method for shorter trips, anything less than 8 hours. I'd rather take a bus in Mexico because you get the nice big window, you get to look outside, you get to see everything. And by the time you add up all the time that's involved in going to the airport, it just ends up, I think ends up actually being a better and more comfortable experience. And oftentimes isn't that much longer. It's also a lot cheaper. And if you want to drive in Mexico, Mexico is great for driving. I know a lot of people get intimidated by it, but really the roads here are altogether pretty good. Many Americans drive here. You could drive your car down across the border. You can rent a car here quite easily. I'll have a tip later about how to avoid a common rental car scam that does happen in Mexico. But generally speaking, it's very drivable, and that's a great way to get around. Mexico is also very affordable. Lots of budget accommodation options. I was just walking past a place down the street yesterday, and I noticed that there were a hotel that had places for rent for 100 pesos a night. It's $5. So even everything from budget backpacker on up to $1,000 a night resorts that are all inclusive and kind of have all of that. There's also a lot of really great boutique hotels. One thing I love about it is there's so many great family-run hotels, local Airbnbs where that are kind of have a lot more local character to them that you can find. There's just so many great accommodation options available in Mexico. You're never going to have a hard time finding somewhere good to stay. It is also very easy to travel. Mexico is a lot safer than you think. There's the perception of Mexico in the news, and every single time something happens to one tourist from the United States, it becomes a big news story in the US because of politics involved in immigration and US and Mexico relations. There's, certain media organizations that kind of blow those stories up. The reality is that tens of millions of people travel to Mexico for tourism every single year and have a great time here. It is, in my experience, I often feel safer here than I have in many cities in the United States. It depends on where you go, but if you're going to places that are generally have a large tourist population to them, you're going to be fine. A lot of the really scary stories that you see are happening in places that you're unlikely to venture to. Also, Mexico makes it really easy to travel here. You can come as a tourist for 180 days without needing a visa. And so I'll be here for a few months. Now let's go ahead and talk about what the situation is right here. Now, in my first presentation about 2 months ago, I mentioned that I wanted to go to Mexico, but wasn't yet quite personally comfortable with where they stood in terms of the pandemic. So where are we at now? Things are getting better in Mexico, but it's still definitely not, where things are in the United States. But it also is very regionalized. So let's go through a few quick statistics. So vaccinations in Mexico have been picking up, particularly in the last few weeks, as the United States has started to share some of its excess vaccine supply with Mexico. So Mexico now has about 24% of the population that have gotten at least one shot, 14% that have been fully vaccinated. And those numbers are increasing by about a percentage point per day. So they're doing a pretty good job of picking up the pace. Again, a lot of that excess supply is coming from the United States. And they are also producing their own vaccine through a deal that they have with Argentina to produce the AstraZeneca vaccine. So all in all, their vaccination campaign has improved significantly. Now, with that said, Mexico is still not testing anywhere near what the WHO says should be. You should be testing in order to understand where the pandemic is, which makes it hard to really trust any of the numbers anywhere in Mexico. To give some perspective on this, on a per capita basis, Mexico conducts about 15 times fewer tests than the United States does. So it does kind of mean that to some extent, you're kind of flying blind here when you're looking at these numbers. As you'll see in the chart there has been a small recent uptick in cases. A lot of those are coming from Cabo and from the Yucatan. And so there's very much a different sort of epidemiological situation depending upon where you are in the country. And we'll look at a map here in a second that will really highlight that. So again, the U.S. has announced that its plan is to share a lot of its excess vaccine supply with strategic partners, and that Mexico is top of that list. Just last week, they sent 1.2 million Johnson & Johnson shots to Baja California Sur, so basically to Tijuana. And they're targeting a lot of those vaccines along the border cities and also to the tourist destinations, because that's one of the conditions that the United States has had in sharing that, and that they're trying to get vaccinated along the border so that they can open up the land border. As it stands, you can fly to Mexico, but the land border is closed. The Mexico government has suggested that their goal is to have one shot to all adults by October. They seem, from what I've been able to see, to more or less be on pace to be able to do that. So that is good, particularly as we start to approach the winter months. The one thing that you have to know if you're thinking about traveling to Mexico, above all else, is you have to understand Mexico's stoplight system. So Mexico, just like the United States, is a federal country and has different states. Each of the states, just like there's very different pandemic responses in different states in the United States, very different pandemic responses within Mexico. But they have this national color-coded system. It's got 4 colors on it: green, yellow, orange, and red. And you can see the current map from today on here of Mexico. And so the situation is very different in different parts of Mexico. So out in the Yucatan, there's a lot of tourists. They're currently in orange, and they flirted with going up to red, which would mean that they would lock down. I love the Yucatan. I'm not going there personally right now on account of that. Same situation in Cabo San Lucas, which gets a lot of tourists from California. They're still in orange. So what this means is that every 2 weeks, the Mexico government puts out a new stoplight map, and those colors for that 2-week period dictate what the restrictions are. And as you kind of go up, more things close. And as you get into red, it becomes more of a full-on lockdown. So nowhere in Mexico is currently in red, although they do have quite a few places in orange. The big center of the country is green, though, with the exception of Mexico City, which just went to yellow, unfortunately. So generally, the sort of mountain center is currently doing well. Where I am in Jalisco State right now, they have about 1 case per 100,000. Again, they're not testing enough, so hard to say how reliable those numbers are, but that's certainly significantly better than they were several months ago. Wherever you go, I would suggest always be sure to really stay on top of the stoplight map. You'll find a link to that in travellemming.com/tatteredcover. You can also find it at that less than simple URL that I have there on the slide. Okay, so if you are looking to go to Mexico, either in the short term or maybe later on in the year, once there's been a little bit more time for that vaccination to get up, let's talk about where to go. And so I'm going to run down some popular destinations to start off on, just because we have to cover them so everyone goes. And then we're going to gradually kind of get a little bit more off the beaten path, talking more about what I actually think are the places that you should go if you don't want to be a lemming like everybody else. So first up, the place where everybody is going right now is Tulum. And I first went to Tulum 5 or 6 years ago. It was still just coming along. It originally was just a fishing village. These days, it is really, really, really popular. A lot of people have been going down there. They've been open through the entire pandemic. You will find resorts that cost thousands of dollars a night. You can stay in one of Pablo Escobar's old mansions. A lot of celebrities go down there. The beaches are gorgeous. That's a drone photo that I took a few years back. But it's just really expensive. And unless you want to shell out like minimum $500 a night to stay on the beach, you're going to be staying in Tulum town. And to me, I like Tulum town, but it is a little bit of a production to get to the beach. There's one road. There's always a traffic jam, particularly if you're going at sunset. I love Tulum. I'll still go back. I think that there's better value for money in other places in Mexico, to be honest with you. Another popular destination that I do think deserves to be popular is Mexico City. It is a world-class city. I mean, it's on par with New York, Paris, London, Buenos Aires, in my opinion. You can find everything you want there, from street food stalls to some of the highest class Michelin-rated restaurants in the world. They have just gorgeous parks. Chapultepec Park, which is like their central park, is just an amazing park. They've got many different neighborhoods that each have their own character. Condesa and Roma Norte are kind of the most popular, along with Polanco for foreigners to visit. But there's many different parts. It's a huge city with a lot to offer. Really very very cool place to go, and quite literally cool, by the way. Most places in Mexico City, when you go to stay there, they won't even have air conditioning, because even in July, the temperatures right now tend to hover, even the highs are around 69, 70 degrees. Because it's so high, we think about Denver as being such a high city, it's the mile high city. Mexico City is twice as high in terms of altitude as Denver. And so for that reason, I always remind people, if you're going to Mexico City, you need to pack a jacket when you go to Mexico. And a lot of people don't think about that when they're traveling to Mexico, but it does get chilly there. You can see me there in a jacket a few years back at the one of the Mexico City signs. Another place that, again, currently experiencing a COVID surge, but it's very popular, is Cabo San Lucas, just down on the tip of the Baja Peninsula. Really beautiful water out there. You can get some good scuba diving there's a cool town called a few destinations like Todos Santos, which is just up the road from Cabo San Lucas, which has a little bit different of a flair. You can see the hotel, which inspired Hotel California by the Eagles. It's a cool place. It's very tourist heavy. It's kind of the Cancun of the West. Puerto Vallarta, where I currently am. Again, this was actually my first time here. It was the last of the major destinations for me to tick off. What I really like about this place is it has this dramatic mountain setting where you can see kind of in the photo here, that's me holding up one of my drinks at sunset the other night. The city's set on a mountain that just slopes into the ocean. And so if you're basically every single window in town either has a beach view or has a mountain view. And I think that's really cool, something I haven't seen quite as dramatic as that, apart from like in Thailand and those places in Asia. Really awesome. It's also a very popular LGBT travel spot, and that is, very apparent in sort of everything here. So, if you or someone is looking for LGBT places to travel, this is one of the most friendly in Mexico. There's a huge community here. And it also, both in connection with that and just sort of in connection with the city generally, it's very much known as sort of like a party destination. Personally, I've been, there are 2 blocks away from me, there are nightclubs that are going crazy every night, which I'm not quite sure how I personally feel about. I haven't participated in any of that. But that's the reputation of this town for sure. Then let's talk about up in the mountains. So San Miguel de Allende, I speak Spanish now, but I still can't get the double L's, it's a very popular town for American expats. In fact, if you're in San Miguel, half the time it feels like there's more Americans than there are Mexicans, but for a reason. It's really beautiful. I mean, that's the center square there. They have this gorgeous pink church, one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen. And it's very affordable. Again, it's up in the mountains, so you get kind of like nice, cooler desert plateau air. Very cool place to go. You can't actually fly directly into there, but you can fly either into Leon, fly to Mexico City and take the bus up, or you could fly to Querétaro and then take the bus about an hour from there. Guanajuato is a city that's also pretty close to San Miguel. It is one of the most colorful cities, maybe the most colorful one I've ever seen. All of the buildings, I mean, you can see it. Here's a photo here. It's just set in this valley, and all the buildings have all of this incredible colors, a lot of Spanish colonial architecture. It is a very cool city, very fun. You do have to hike up and down the hills a lot because it's not flat at all. So you just have to be aware of that. But it's really one of the most beautiful places, great for Instagram. All right, now let's get into places that are becoming a little less popular. So Oaxaca, which is both a state and then also has its capital city by the same name, is quickly becoming very popular. A lot of my friends from Denver love it. In particular, it's known for having great mezcal. There's a lot of history there. You can find some ancient ruins. You can also find beaches in the southern part of Oaxaca state. Puerto Escondido in particular is quickly becoming popular with digital nomads and with retirees. Now, out in the Yucatan, this is one of my favorites, Bacalar, or Laguna de Bacalar, which is known as Mexico's Lake of Seven Colors. This is a drone photo I took a couple years back. You can kind of see those like 7 different shades of blue that they reference. It is just a few kilometers set back from the beach is this lagoon, but the water itself is just like crystal clear, very still. You have all of these piers that kind of jet on the water. You can, in places it's so shallow, you can walk like a kilometer practically into the lagoon. So you're just surrounded by this like really, really clear, beautiful water. It's really big. It's becoming more popular, but it's still very much doesn't have anywhere near the kind of tourism that you would find in the rest of the Yucatan, because it's a couple hours past Tulum. So you do have to take a bus for about 4 or 5 hours from Cancun in order to get there. And I think that kind of keeps the numbers down. Once Tulum International Airport opens up next year, I think that this will become more popular. If I had to pick alternative to Tulum, this would be it, even though it's not a beach, but it very much kind of feels like one. You can get out in the water, and I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. Another place that is picking up a lot of travel near Tulum is the island of Hobash. So Hobash is on the tip, just kind of north of Cancun. You'll find this long, elongated island just off the coast. You have to take a ferry to get there. It is, when I first went there 5 years ago or so, it was pretty much all dirt roads. They're slowly paving a bit of it, but it's still pretty much kind of got that like dirt road island feel. The best way to get around is on a golf cart. You just rent a golf cart, take it around the island with you, or just walking. During June and July, so right now, you can go and you could swim with whale sharks. It's one of the best places in the world to swim with whale sharks. You can pretty reliably count on being able to get that photo of you swimming with a whale shark in Hobash. Again, it's starting to get a lot more investment, a lot more expensive hotels moving in. So it's changing quickly, but it is still, I think, a really excellent, underrated place. And then my personal favorite hidden gem, which I talk about every chance I get, is Valladolid. This is the town that is in the middle of the Yucatan Peninsula. For that reason, it doesn't get quite as many tourism because it doesn't have a beach set in the middle of the jungle. But it's the closest town to the Mayan ruins at Chichen Itza, which are one of the new 7 wonders of the world. It is has this beautifully like well-kept colonial center. It's only got about 40,000 people. It's really small. But you can find a lot of cenotes, which are underground swimming holes that just fall through the limestone bedrock all around Valladolid, including dead center in the middle of the city. Some of the most beautiful sort of, if you've ever seen like Instagram shots of cenotes, most of those are in Valladolid, most of the really pretty ones. The ones down by Tulum and Playa del Carmen, although worth going to, in my opinion, they're not as shallow because they're closer to the shoreline. So the bedrock just doesn't have that dramatic drop that you get. I've got a whole, if you just Google the name of the town, my site comes up like right at the top. That's how much I love this place. Still keep in touch with everybody there. And definitely will be going back soon. It is incredible. I think this town is going to really get a lot of tourism once they open up the Mayan train. So, which will probably be a couple of years until they do this. They've been planning on one of these government projects that kind of takes interminably long. But there's going to be a train that will take you from Cancun to Tulum to Valladolid up to the city of Merida, kind of all around the Yucatan. So you can just get on and off the train. I think it'll be really cool when it happens. I think it'll really bring a lot of attention to this town. Hopefully won't change it in the wrong ways. But if I had to pick one place to go, this is really it. The people there are just absolutely incredible. They have their own sort of culture, even though it's very close to Tulum and Playa del Carmen, very different and highly recommended. All right, let's talk about a few travel tips, and then we'll go ahead and get to Q&A. So first up, money in Mexico. Always pay in pesos. There's a lot of times they'll try to get you to accept a conversion or to pay in dollars. You'll instantly lose 10 to 15% of your money. A lot of the ATMs here, they will try to say, "Oh, we'll convert it for you. Just press this button to accept the conversion." But their conversion rate they're going to give you is significantly worse, like 10 to 20% worse than what you'll get from your bank. Don't do that. Pay in pesos. If a place accepts dollars, that's because they're giving you a worse rate. You're in Mexico. Always pay in pesos. I promise you, you'll save a lot over the long run. Also realize Mexico can be a budget-friendly destination. It can also be a luxury destination. It really depends upon what you're looking for. You can spend as little or as much as you want. A lot of it also depends upon where you're going. Rental cars. I mentioned a little scam that a lot of the agencies run here. They will advertise $1 rental cars, but when you show up, they will try to force you to get, you'll have to get their mandatory insurance, which, surprise, will be like $50 a day. And so that $1 a day rental car deal, which you see online, I can't believe that's still on there. Not a thing. Make sure that you're you're seeing insurance included in the cost when you do that, because you do need insurance, obviously, to drive in Mexico. Your insurance in the United States most likely will not cover you here. And that's true even if you have like the Chase Sapphire Reserve and stuff, by the way. There's specific Mexico insurance that you do need, and that's kind of the basis of this whole scam. How not to be a lemming, in Mexico. Mexico is a big place. Don't just go where everybody else is going. Tulum and Cancun, I like them. I go. There's nothing wrong with that. But at this point, they're basically giant tourist traps. I mean, nobody, like if you go to Tulum and Cancun and you talk to any of the locals there, nobody's actually a local from there. They're all workers who have moved out from other parts of Mexico, because most of the Riviera Maya exists to service the tourism industry. However, there are many really wonderful, genuinely local places that you can go to that are close. I mentioned many of them. Valladolid, Merida is another great one. So don't be afraid to explore. A few little quick tips. I've got an article with more tips that you can find at travellemming.com/tab-recover. This one has tripped me up a lot. If there is an M on the bathroom door, that is not for people who identify as male. That is actually the women's restroom, because M in Spanish is mujeres. I have more than a couple times walked into the wrong room and had a little bit of egg on my face there. Another one is that in a lot of Mexico, you got to put your toilet paper in like a bin that is next to the toilet. Otherwise, you might clog it up. And that's not a fun thing to have in terms of conversations with your hotel or your restaurant. I've seen it happen with other people. Some of the big resorts do have more modern plumbing, but as a general matter, that's what you should expect to do. And of course, if you want more guides to Mexico, Tat Cover has quite a few different ones in stock. They actually have quite a few guides that are specific to particular parts of Mexico, which I always recommend. But in terms of general guides, I think the Rough Guide to Mexico, Lonely Planet Guide to Mexico, both of which you can order through Travel Lemming's website, are really solid ones. So that's it for this presentation. As always, please check out all the resources that I mentioned here at travellemming.com/tat-cover and leave me your feedback. And with that, Michaela, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple here. I'm gonna change your screen here so that we don't share and we're not tiny little things in the corner. But that was awesome. Thank you so much for helping us get bit by the travel bug, so to speak. One of the great questions here is, when is the best time to go to the different parts of Mexico? Does it matter what part of Mexico you're in, or is it the same all the way around?
Yeah, for sure. So not now, normally, is what I would say. This is the hottest part of the year. It's the rainy season. It absolutely, though, matters where you go. So in the Riviera Maya along the Caribbean, it's going to be really hot right now. It's going to start being really rainy. And then particularly as we get into July, August, September, those are really risky times to go because you could get hit by a hurricane. And as having survived a hurricane in Puerto Rico years back, that's not great. And that can, make sure you get travel insurance if you're traveling during those times. So that can be challenging. There actually is a hurricane off the coast of Puerto Vallarta right now, although it's far enough out that we're just getting a little bit of storms off of it. Same's true on the West Coast. It is very hot and humid here. This would normally be considered low season, but all the locals that I've talked to have said that it's basically a second high season, just because Europe is, you can go to Europe, but I don't know if you've seen Portugal just closed down again. It's really challenging. I think a lot of Americans have just kind of thrown up their hands. And so a lot of people who would normally be going to Europe are coming to Mexico right now. In the center of the city, this is where I will be going next week. I'll be heading up to either somewhere up in Querétaro, around there, or to San Miguel. In the high parts of Mexico, in the plateau, in the center, it's pretty decent time to go right now because it never really gets that hot. And in the evenings, it'll get down to the 50s, even the 40s, even in the middle of July, in San Miguel, and even in Mexico City, it's quite cool. So the center part of the country, has a very different climate owing to the altitude. Mexico has this really high plain that just, kind of is the whole center part of that. Again, twice the altitude of Denver. So you're talking about kind of equivalent altitudes to, Breckenridge or Vail or something like that. And so, yeah, it does depend when you go. Generally speaking, the high season for Mexico, particularly for the beach resorts, tends to be between December and then March, of course, when you have spring break. And in April, you have what's known as Semana Santa, and that's the break from school for Mexicans. And so that some years coincides with spring break, and oh my God, prices surge when you have spring breakers from the US and you have local Mexicans who are trying to travel to a lot of these same destinations. You do not want to be traveling during a Semana Santa spring break. I like to go during shoulder season. So for the beach destinations, end of November, beginning of December, before people sort of take their holiday breaks, going around Thanksgiving can often you can find some deals, or traveling in May. It starts to get hot in some of these destinations, but it's still not so bad. And like, for example, Hobash is perfect in June because then you can swim with the whale sharks. So yeah, I think there's always somewhere that you can go in Mexico. Mexico City is pretty much there's almost never a bad time to go to Mexico City. So, if you want to go, no matter the time of year, it's just kind of a matter of picking the right place.
Nice. I like this one too. Do you have any language apps or word resources that we can use, especially for those of us who studied French in high school, not Spanish?
Well, if you study French, they're both romantic languages. So you can probably get a lot of the root words. Well, first thing I'll say is that even as somebody who is now speaks Spanish, I think close to fluently, the locals will switch to English with me in any of the tourist destinations, because anybody who works in, like, if you're dealing with anyone in a hotel, at a restaurant, anything like that, like, English prevalence is very, very high. Now, with that said, I really enjoy speaking Spanish. And so in terms of apps and stuff, so I've used Duolingo in the past just to like learn. I think that like Google Translate works really well. You can download a language offline. So I have a bunch of them downloaded on my phone. So even if I don't have connection, it can still serve as a translator. And you can even just push the little voice thing and it will like actively translate for you. You can also put in a word and it will translate that word. You can copy and paste text. It's got the camera feature where you can just point the camera and it will try to overlay a translation. It doesn't seem like it's ever gotten perfect, but it does help. Like if there's a sign you don't understand, you can just point that. So I think Google Translate works really well. I'm always a fan of just bringing like if you have a guidebook, any of the guidebooks that I mentioned, or you can also buy smaller like little phrase books. If you don't speak Spanish, the number of words that you're going to be using, I mean, if you could even learn 100 words during your trip, you'd be surprised how far that'll get you.
I think that's great advice. And so actually we are at our time and everybody is just saying a bunch of thank yous for all the advice and they're writing it down and they're very excited for it. And I want to encourage everybody, seriously, go to travellemming.com/tatteredcover. And that way you can give us feedback for upcoming topics on time to travel. You also can find out more about, you have tips and tricks and more things on there, right? Can you explain what else is on that link for people?
Yeah, so it still has, this is going to become a page that will just be a running series of resources from all of our videos. So for Mexico, we've got links to my Mexico section, which has, like I said, 40 some odd articles on it. Got a link to the stoplight. You got to know that stoplight map. I would not go without knowing that. And again, a link for feedback. We want to hear from you. What would be useful for you? What kind of tips do you value? What kind of places or things or subjects should we talk about for future events? This is now our third one. We'll be doing these regularly, so we need all the ideas we can get.
Thank you all so much for joining us. And Nate, thank you so much for your expertise, your experience, your storytelling, and your pictures. The food one, I was like, maybe I need to change. My boyfriend's making brats right now and I'm like, I need to change my countries. But thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. You can watch past travel videos, Time to Travel, our author event with Cheney Kwok on our YouTube channel here. Make sure to visit tatteredcover.com and travellemming.com for more of this information and for all of your travel needs. Thank you all so much for joining us. Stay safe. Happy reading. Happy traveling. Bye all.